Everyone's going to have the same question. Depending on the time, but I think we'll be good. It's an hour-long show, apparently. Good morning. Here we go.
Hey, are you Ian Nethercott, the host of the AutoHub Show?
War is tough, but peace is about thinking ahead of the challenges and getting it done.
There are lots of experts in automotive who talk about the problems. The AutoHub Show is all about solutions. Ready for the solutions? Let's get this masterclass started live right now.
If you look at the last 4 years again, we've answered 41 million phone calls for dealers over the last 4 years with our AI platform. We've also handled over 150 million text messages. And so when you look at just those raw numbers, that's a 4-to-1, 3.5, 4-to-1 text to phone calls. So I don't know. Here's what I can tell you, though. I believe that the customer wants to be met where they are presently. If that is text, voice, video call, if they want to be engaged and engaged instantly.
I've been fortunate enough to be using Numa since square one, but my opinion, I like to meet the customers where they are, because if I choose my preference in terms of how I want to communicate with people, I'm going to eliminate a large portion of my potential customers. The customer calls in from the outside. There doesn't have to be a person on the other side of the conversation, and it will be a transcribed, recorded transcription of the message, which is important, and it's real time, 365 days a year. So we don't lose anything. The customers that prefer the phone and the customers that prefer the text may be two different people, but the nice thing about like Numa as an example is you got both of those people in one spot.
Hey, I'm Vince Delmonico, General Sales Manager with Cruise Ford Lincoln. Larry Feldman came out and did one of our training courses. Absolutely incredible. I sat through the course myself. The engagement that our salespeople gained from it, the excitement that he brings, it was a new way of looking at things that we're already doing and how we can improve them. Love it. It's literally the best thing since sliced bread.
My name's Fareed Ahmed. I'm the founder and CEO of DSMA. So why should you use DSMA to sell your most valuable asset? The answer is very simple. It's our unparalleled approach to our clients' needs and satisfaction. Remember, DSMA, we're real people doing real deals.
Meta, Instagram, social, and your team is still waiting for ups like it's 1999. Let's be honest. Your market isn't watching TV commercials. They're double tapping and engaging with your competitors on social media posts. People are shopping these days for cars and servicing their vehicles in between watching cat videos. That's where we can help. Retail Resilient is the go-to authority for social selling in the car industry. Whether you're a new car franchise dealer, an independent, a buy here, pay here, a broker, a dealership owner or manager, we have something for you. Remember, when your lot is quiet, it means your social media is not loud enough. Check us out at retailresilient.com so we can retarget you on our social media feeds.
All right. So good morning and welcome. And I believe it's President's Day in the U.S. today. And depending on where you are in the Canadian market, I think it's Family Day. I don't really know. But anyway, it is what it is. So we have a great panel on today. We have obviously Peter, David, Travis, and Paul. And I believe Travis was on first. So Travis gets to speak first. So please introduce yourselves, Travis, and answer the following question. How important is clean data in 2026 in your opinion?
Good morning. My name is Travis Ingram. I'm the president founder of Dealer IT. I've been in the automotive business for 20 plus years, and I created the company because I saw a need for technology partnership and stop treating IT like the plumber. So that's why I'm here. That's why the company was founded. AI feels like the new crypto term that everyone doesn't know what it means and how to use it. And so it's really important for the data to get clean and how to use it. Good in, good out, just matters how we use the data.
Fantastic. And David, I believe, was on next. David, maybe you can talk a little bit about you and what you do, but more importantly, what do you think on cleanliness of data? How important is that?
Well, first of all, thanks and appreciate the invite to the show. the importance of clean data is going to be pretty much everything for all of the stores as we move into 26 and further. With the advent of AI and all of the new tools and everything that has been brought out, they're only going to be as effective and as useful as the data that they're using. So if you're not using the best and highest quality data across the board, even the best tools are going to be working subpar across the board. So yes, it needs to be a priority for everybody, every dealer, and really every marketing company.
Fantastic. Peter, what do you think on clean data versus not clean or sub-clean?
Well, you're speaking my language. I mean, that's what we do at Cactus Sky. Data is everything. And I got to tell you, especially for what we do with email marketing, and what I always share with the dealers is, if you're sending out emails through your CRM and that data is not clean, you are making a huge mistake. And I know that translates to what we're talking about with AI, but what's incredibly scary to me is when dealers hire us at Cactus Sky to clean their data, and they send me their DMS data and their CRM data. Let's talk about DMS first. The DMS data is a mess, first of all, but literally we're losing 30 to 40% of the email addresses in the DMS data, meaning those are bad email addresses. When they send me their CRM data, because the CRM data is old, we're losing over 50%. Let's say that one more time. 50% of the data in your CRM is bad. So dealers, if you're wondering why your email marketing is not working and why you're getting terrible results, you're not getting good responses, it's because you're sending out to dirty, bad data, and that will affect your deliverability of your email. So data is critical. So that's why I'm so excited about this topic, and I'm glad that we've got, David, Paul, and Travis. These guys are, experts in this area that can share a lot of really good information with the dealers today.
Thanks very much. And last but not least, Mr. Paul Storm, what do you think?
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, no matter where you're calling in from. Ian, Peter, thank you so much. It's always a joy seeing you guys, and thank you for the time at the show.
No worries.
Okay, so the data story, it's a place I live and I've lived in for a long, long time. We'll unpeel this onion, but I think one hard reality has to be met. And Peter highlighted it, and I think somebody else did as well. The data that's living in, and we could spread this across any business vertical or even personal vertical, but we have to get to the reality of the data that's living in the systems today is either inaccurate, there's not enough of it, it's fragmented, or it's dated. So we really need to look forward and to see how we do better data collection so that all this brilliant automation could make magic, call it, to give you the most highest degree of accuracy and efficacy for you to either make decisions on or to make your experiences better. But you will not fix bad data. If the data is in your system today, please don't go back now and try to find better data within your system that was entered poorly, or it's not enough of it. So we need to think about how we look forward and not what's there.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think there's always that famous statement, garbage in, garbage out. And I know that salespeople may not make the best data entry technicians, but I think also it's the volume of data, as Peter said. When you look at the amount of records a current dealer might have or a manufacturer, when you implement or bolt on AI to solve problems or to create new problems, depending on how you implement, the big question is, how do you, implement a better process with data entry moving forward? And how do you make that a little bit less wrought with peril? So David, maybe you can give us your thoughts on, how dealers can really inspect the data and maybe prevent some of these problems before they become catastrophic moving forward.
Well, that's an outstanding question, and the hard answer for that is dealers are really going to have a difficult time managing and cleaning up their own data sets. I mean, they need to spend the majority of their time dealing with their customers, selling cars, selling service, and the data aspect of it is really a full-time job. And one of the things that holds a dealership back is that the OEMs are not always the best at merging data sets, merging customer numbers. There's a lot of things that are not done behind the scenes that create problems for the dealer. And once that data is in that system, you really need an organized way to clean all of that up. And it really needs to be several different multi-pronged attack, so to speak.
Right.
You can't just do it by looking up and validating addresses, because then you've got phone numbers and then you got emails. And if you have a vendor that has the ability to do that, and I mean, not just says that they're going to do that, they can actually show you and provide you the results from that type of scrubbing, that's where the real benefit lies. And then you have the issue of, if the data can all be updated, but if Joe Smith has 5 customer numbers in the dealer's DMS, how do you know which one is real? How do you know which car is live? How do you know which one was traded in? The way it's supposed to work with the dealership is, every time somebody comes in for service or buys another car, it's supposed to be attached to the original record. Being a dealer myself for a long time and being in the car business for almost 40 years, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen with any regularity, if it happens at all. And the DMS companies really don't have the ability to merge all of that data. So to find a partner that can help you merge all of that data, so you're working off of a single source of truth, and if that truth is based on valid data, then you are way ahead of the curve. So to answer the question is, for a dealer to do it themselves, yes, it certainly would be helpful for them to go through it and to break it down, but it's a very arduous and long-term task. So having a partner that can help with that you trust, is really where the benefit lies.
Peter, you had a question?
Well, I want to go back, and Dave mentioned something, and something I want to ask him and then also Travis to tune in on. From what I'm hearing, Dave, what you're saying is that in the DMS, there's a lot of multiple records for the same person. And that's what I'm hearing. So my question for you, and I know you're a third party, for the dealers that are trying to do this marketing, is there any way that once the data is clean, let's say they take their data and they clean it, is it an easy way for the dealers to take that data and update their DMS records? Or is it better for a dealer to be more efficient and have a third party company help them market to, or even if they just go get their own, email system or whatever, for them to do the marketing outside of their DMS, for this to be effective when you've got so many multiple records in service?
So the answer to the multiple records thing is, you've got to have an ironclad policy in the dealership, so that when people come into service, that they reference the main file. But you also have to include the people in finance that are closing deals, the people up front that are selling the cars. I mean, it's an all-encompassing process, and it is very difficult to manage. I mean, the average dealership has, I don't know how many people that are working there that can touch deals and deal numbers and create deals or create ROs. And it's a big challenge, because we've cleaned up data for some stores in a couple of dealer groups. And if that policy isn't in place, then you just wind up with the same problem 3, 6, 10 months, 2 years from now that you had previously. So it's a game, but it's a game that needs to be played diligently every single day. So the best answer is if you have a resource that can merge all of that data and clean it all up at the same time, and that's what you're using for your marketing, that's where you wind up saving the most amount of money and the most time. I mean, dealers got, their main job is to sell cars and sell service. They're not data experts. And if they're spending all their time trying to worry about their data, then they're taking their eye off the ball when it comes to selling cars and selling service. That's why we have a company, and that's why we're talking about this now.
Fantastic.
Well, Travis, let me ask you a question, because you're also very in tune with what goes on with the DMSs. What Dave said is correct. When I was a dealer, it was a hard problem. I worked with a lot of dealers. And to try and get somebody at the dealership to be consistent, forget about taking in the fact that we have a high turnover rate, but getting them to do this and making sure those records are correct. Is there a way, Travis, that you found where the dealers can lock down their DMS, where they can actually force their service people to actually match up the records and not just keep creating new records?
So my whole world is about locking down controls. So they made a point about, chasing something we call chasing the ghost. So the problem is that too many people have access to make record changes in multiple systems. And so our whole job is fixing those sources. Data gets put in its DMS, data gets put into the CRM, they have a lead generation system, they've got a website, they've got other systems that handle inventory. Different people are making changes in different systems. We're chasing the ghost of the problem. And so the biggest issue we have is getting the structure in place of going, I need these people to have access to this system, and everything gets fed up. And so you got to have those protocols and policies in place, and everyone has to adhere to it and understand that the lockdowns are intentional. Access needs to get put in and updated in one place. Certain people need to have access and make a protocol about what gets happening and everything else going forward, the good data situation. You have to stop it at the beginning and set the policies in place first, and then fix everything else down. If you try to work what they have now, you'll be chasing for hours. You'll be chasing nothing forever.
Totally agree.
100%. So obviously, go ahead, Peter.
Well, you had an idea on that too, as far as, because you're big on data entry and stuff like that. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So look, again, there is a great exercise to go back and try to sanitize data, go through data duplication and all of that. That's an exercise that could certainly happen. But moving forward, there has to be some guideline and governance on the way that you're, collecting data, whatever that metadata that you want to have, and your actual DMSs and CRMs need to have gating where a deal can't be pushed through unless these fields have been entered and they've been actually validated. But it really, I would encourage, because there was such it was so fluid in the way they actually collected data that was all about closing opportunities, and it wasn't about really capturing the data and the most accurate way. I really think it has to be a forward-thinking approach and process and governance on how that data is being collected and then entered. I also think there has to be some way to move it from manually connected and then manually entered, where it has to have some sort of a digital interface that's ultimately grabbing and validating all of that data.
Interesting. Yeah. So I know this year at NADA, there was a lot of talk about AI from every angle. I also talked to a dealer who's on the NADA council, and he was talking about security and data. But if you have a bunch of AI tools that you bolt onto your process, and we know there's a lot of dirty data out there, how is that going to work? Like, do you think that's going to impede how that works? Let's start with Paul on this.
Yeah, Peter and I spoke about this at length the other night. You can't, no matter how good the AI is, no matter how good that tool is, it's all done by algorithms. It's all done by math. So if you're going to solve a math problem and you're giving it the wrong numbers and letters, it's not going to give you the outcome. It will give you an outcome. It just won't be the outcome that you need, or it won't have enough of that outcome for you to do something with it. You certainly would not make you wouldn't make ultimately business critical business decisions on it. So all the AI sprawl I'm a fan of, but you really need to understand what your outcomes are. That's a different topic than what we're speaking about here. But you need to understand what are the outcomes that you're trying to get out of that tool. But it's also, what data are you feeding it? It cannot do the magic show by itself. And I hope dealers, I really pray and hope that dealers don't, when you're looking at demos, when you're walking through the NADA show, and there was some great technology there, and very forward-thinking AI built products, without a doubt. But they have to understand that when they're seeing a demo, that they're seeing a demo that's from the vendor that's feeding it fully annotated data or the perfect data to get the most accurate outcomes. When they apply that in practicality and they want to operationalize it at scale in one rooftop, or God, many, like if you look at an actual dealership group, it's going to be very hard to actually repeat that with that level of awesomeness and really efficacy if they don't have the same structured data, data feeds, accurate data, enough of that data. Because when you're feeding algorithms and you're trying to make, when you're doing math problems and you're trying to solve, multiple math problems, it's not just having one tranche of data or 1 days of data. What you're looking for is a lot of data and a lot of variations of it for you to make ultimately decisions on it, report on it, do outreach, do, marketing on it. So I tell you, and I hate to go long, but I feel for these dealers because they're looking for something now. They really are. And they know that they have to do something to move forward. But I hope that they pause slowly and they implement each tool individually, understand what their outcomes are, and know that they're feeding it bad data in today. So the efficacy and the outcomes might not be exactly what they saw when they saw the, beautiful demo by the vendor.
Fantastic. David, what do you think?
Well, in my experience at NADA, this year was a little bit different than previous years. And then most of the dealers that came up to me were talking about data, and they are aware how challenging the data is. They are aware that they have multiple customer numbers for the same people. They're aware that the data is outdated from the OEM and in their DMS. So they're hyper aware this year, even more so than previous years, as to what the issue is. And being that our creed is basically the quality of your marketing is a direct result of the quality of your data. So, therein lies the problem, and they're aware that the issue is specifically with the data. And when you tack on high technology and you tack on AI and all of the things that were out there at the event this year, and you're right, Paul, there's tons of outstanding technology, but the technology is only as good as the data that's being fed into it. And if you have issues with the data, or the data is not accurate, the technology isn't designed to validate the data. The technology is designed to use the data that it's given to provide marketing and provide reporting and provide a certain outcome. And if that data is not as accurate as it can be, then not only are you going to go down the wrong path when it comes to marketing, you're going to get results that are not true to the system. And more importantly, you're going to waste a lot of money. And, when you're looking at marketing and you're looking at data sets, whether it's a CRM or the DMS or any of the data sets that a dealership has access to, the OEM data, you can put all of the high power technology that you have behind it. And if it's built on a gravel foundation instead of a concrete block foundation, you're going to slip and slide, and that thing's not going to work the way that it's supposed to work. And the problem is you're not going to know. Right. By the time you find out that the results are not actually showing up the way you want it to show up, you're already months and potentially years into a particular program, a particular marketing stream, a particular spend and investment before you even know that the results that you're getting are not on point. So you've got to start with concrete block as a foundation. You can't put up boards. You can't put up gravel and sand. It needs to be that way. So that's critical. That is absolutely critical for the success of every dealer going forward.
Yeah, and not to just jump in, but that's why the statement that I made earlier, it's great to go back and forensically look at and clean up existing data. but the path should be forward. If we're speaking to these dealers, you really want to help them. You want to make them better operationally. You should be discussing, okay, we can try to leverage as much as we can with what you have in repo today, but let's really discuss a very succinct plan moving forward on how are you going to do data collection and data entry, because then you could make all this brilliant automation magical.
Yeah, thanks for that, Peter. I think Travis hasn't talked for a bit, but go ahead, Peter.
Well, actually, it's perfect because I just got a question in from one of the people in the audience.
Okay.
One of the dealers asked a question online, and he asked basically, and I think this is a question that Travis could probably answer us. He understands, he's heard a lot about the data stuff, but his question is, and maybe Travis can help with this, how do I get the data out of my DMS if I wanted to give it to a third-party company to do the marketing, to make sure that I'm giving them the right data out of my DMS? Is there any things that I should know? That's something, Travis, maybe you could address?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are able to speak beta to their experiences, but it really just depends on where it's coming from. And that's an unfortunate truth. You're going to get limitations on who owns that data. You're going to get limitations on who has access to that data. And there are going to be different protocols that are in place for security and, privacy that lets you have certain data in certain states, different laws. And so it just depends on what you got to pull from, what you got to deal with.
He just came back and said, and then this may be something where you might have to have an offline conversation maybe, but he did say that he is got Reynolds and Reynolds as his DMS provider.
Yeah, I mean, there's a pathway with Reynolds. They're not going to be as difficult as others will be.
Okay. But would that be something that they should go and reach out to them to pull the data, or is that something the dealer could do themselves?
The dealers are going to need to contact the partner who needs to use it, and obviously the DMS on if there's a relationship already there for integration.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, so we were talking. Thanks for that. So we were talking about obviously data, and I know that there's been a lot of discussion around different DMS and CRM providers around access to dealers' own data, and even people saying, "Hey, they're holding me hostage on my data." But when you look at it from an OEM point of view and a dealer point of view, are the OEM and the dealers on the same page with cleaning up the mess, in your opinion? I mean, Travis, why don't we start with you?
So repeat that question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The DMS providers obviously sometimes aren't happy to give data up, but also we have the double-edged sword of the OEM and the dealer both having different points of view. Is everyone on the same page with the long-term goal, in your opinion, of data and getting that and fixing it?
I think they all want to own it. I think is the short, sweet answer. That is, the data is the power. Mm-hmm. So it was funny. I was listening to, I think it was David talk earlier, or maybe it was Paul.
Yeah.
But it's funny how much they want to hold on to this access and control. And the problem is that my background is cybersecurity, that can be very dangerous on who has the data and how it's used. And so it's really controlled. Like, what do you want to do with this data? What is your intentions? Whose permissions or access is going to use it? And so as far as the cleaning point is good for marketing, but as far as what we're going to do with it is concerned as well.
Right. Great. David, did you want to comment on the triple-edged sword there? I mean, I guess who owns it, which is a great thought from Travis, but more importantly, who's driving that change to make sure everyone's on the same page with the data and it's concurrent. I mean, it's accurate.
Well, and the unfortunate truth of that is, as we've seen in the courts, that there's been quite a few battles over who actually owns the data. My belief is that the dealer owns the data. Without the dealer, there is no data for anybody to manage or house or anything along those lines. But the possibility of getting the OEMs to work in conjunction with the DMS providers and CRM providers is next to zero, I would say. If I'm being realistic. I mean, and not only that, but of the people that are on Reynolds and Reynolds or CDK or Techion or DealerTrack or whatever DMSs they're on, that data is housed and coordinated and organized differently from dealer to dealer. So right. Just because 10 dealers are on Reynolds and Reynolds does not mean that their data is sorted and set up the exact same way. There is no one size fits all, even within the same DMS. So integrate with thousands of dealers that have, that are with the same DMS companies, we find all the time that the way that they've structured and the way that their data is set up is not uniform. It's not uniform to anybody else. There is no uniform code that they use in the DMS, and the OEMs work the same way.
Right.
I mean, their system, I would say, is uniform for every dealer, but it's not going to match the DMS. And there's going to be people in your OEM database that are not in your DMS, and people in your DMS that are not in the OEM database, even though for the most part they're supposed to be. There aren't.
Right.
I mean, they're just not. And to think that they're going to spend the time and the money to clean it up or organize it across different channels is just a wish list. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So I feel for the gentleman or woman that sent in that question, with respect to where, what to do, where do I go, what do I do? That has to be done. It's got to be done by a third-party provider, I believe, that has the ability to grab that data and to organize it and clean it on the dealer's behalf. And it needs to be transparent so that the dealer can see what has exactly happened instead of the company telling them that this is what they're doing. They need to be able to see it. And if they can see it, then they can go back and they can make adjustments to their DMS daily based on the differences and that have been brought forward from the party that's actually doing the work for them.
Great thoughts there. Because I hear a lot on what's the best DMS, what's the best CRM. People ask me this question all the time, and I don't think there's a correct answer. But Paul, you had some thoughts there?
I do actually. I can tell you that there might be some contention right now with the legacy data and the MSAs that were signed back whenever they were signed. But I honestly feel someone that's been in data for a long time, watching where technology is going, watching where automation is ultimately going. I think it's going to be a very, very symbiotic relationship between the data that's being collected at the actual dealership level being shared to the actual OEM level. And let me just tell you why. They're going to understand that if they overall collectively create better operational efficiencies at the actual dealership level, that is a win-win for both, right? Absolutely, that is a binary thing. On the other side, it also gives the dealers an opportunity to go back to the OEs and provide this extra value and say, hey, these vehicles with these features are working and these aren't, or this vehicle's working, but these features people are asking for this. If the data collection's better, it gives them better leverage to go back, and it gives the actual OEs true insights, right? It's not, there is no gray because you're now grabbing that data. Again, I do strongly believe there needs to be digital interfaces to be able to have data, to actually have observability of what the client's looking for, what they're clicking on, what are they asking.
Yep.
But let's just say it's still manual for now.
Yep.
If you're able to create some governance and standards of what should be ultimately, collected, and then some governance around where it should live inside of the DMS, it's a benefit across the board. And I'm going to give you like a very rudimentary on the opposite side. I think on the operational efficiencies, binary win-win. But on the other side, on just understanding vehicles, and I'm going to hark back to, if the Chevy Aztec was to come out and you had really good data collection, they would know that the dealerships would be able to go back to the OEs with real data proof points and say, this isn't working, right? And so it would make the relationship better, right? It's not a pointing fingers. You're all in it to win together. So I really strongly believe, I know there's some contention now with legacy data, who owns it and what they have, but I truly believe with the way things are moving as far as automation, I think you're going to see the OEs and the dealers, and quite honestly, marketers and everybody else that's in this space start to do a lot more symbiotic data
Yeah, that's great.
Because it's going to be a grand benefit.
Yeah, because it's about real-time decision making. I mean, I had a
Yes, sir.
discussion with a friend of mine who runs Gold Coast Cadillac, a little upset about the EV stuff. Anyway, they've had a number of meetings now with General Motors top brass about this topic and saying, hey, you force us to sell these cars that nobody wants, then you're surprised when no one wants them. So I think that there's some definitely some correlation there, but more importantly, if you actually knew as an OE or even as a dealer group what cars you should stock based on what people drove and bought, that would actually not only make it easier for the OE, but it would also make it easier for the customer and the dealer to not stock 100 cars that nobody wants. Not to say that that is 100% fixable, but I think it's a big problem. So we all know that we need to clean up the data. We all know that we got to work better together. We're going to use AI. We got to make sure that's correct. What's the best way to start the washing process? Let's start with Travis. What do you think?
I mean, so I was just sitting here thinking, I almost feel like you have to grade it. I don't know if that's something you guys can do or have the ability to do,
Yep.
But as Paul pointed out, if you chase going backwards, fixing all your old data, you're never making progress. This data is almost sabotaging what could be the great thing of AI. And so if you don't hit a point going forward, say, listen, I'm either going forward or I'm grading what I have and then use that data, we'll fix it going forward, our processes, whatnot. But all the hype, all the excitement about AI, they're going to have expectations leaving NADA or all the hype about AI that I can bolt this on and buy it and I can reduce staff, I can cut costs, and that's just not reality. And so you're setting that expectation up for failure, and whatever excitement they had about AI across the industry, it's going to set it backwards.
Right. I think that's a great idea. I mean, Peter, I know you spend a lot of time cleaning data. I mean, how do you advise clients?
Well, there's two things. And I think this is more going to be a Dave answer on this one topic. But as far as what we do for cleaning data, we're cleaning mainly for the dealer's data for email marketing. That's totally different than what we're talking with the AI because there's not that much going in there. But what we do is basically when someone sends us a CRM file or a DMS file to clean for effective email marketing, we run it through a couple services. And all you got to do is Google services. You go to Google, how do I clean my email data to make sure it's deliverable? And there's a dozen companies out there. And there's 3 that we use and we do in a systematic way because they charge you on a per record basis. So we run the data through, and we're going to lose, like I said, we're going to lose when it comes to CRM data, over 50% of the data. But we pay for that cleaning. And then the very last one we do is what we call pinging. It's the system that goes out and pings to make sure that it's actually an active email. And that's how we clean the data. And then we give the dealer back the database and say, here's your clean data, and they can load it into whatever email marketing tool they want to use and actually now start getting some success. But I think Dave would be better suited to answer the question because he's doing this with his clients. He's got over 1,000 dealers that he works with across the country where they're giving him all this data. And basically, Dave, from what I understand, you get basically just a ton of stuff and you're literally matching up all of these different records. So how do you recommend them do that?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Well, through my company, what we do is we want to create the largest net possible for each store. So we want to create a net that covers pretty much everything. So what we'll do is we'll gather any available, obviously all of their DMS data, we can grab their CRM data and any OEM data that's available, recall data that's available, any declined services, and any conquest data. And we put all of that together and cast the widest net possible for every single store. So what that does is it may give you, for example, 50,000 records between all of those sources, and we can take extra outside lists as well and bring those into the mix. Then the key part comes in because creating the net is work, but it's easy compared to now what do you do with all of this data? Because there's going to be people in one of the groups in the OEM file that's also in your DMS file, which is going to have 3 different records for the same person. How do you merge them all together? And how, once they're merged together, how do you clean them all up? So the answer to that is what we decided to do is we run tests for every marketing channel that we use. So if you're doing direct mail, then you have to run a number of tests, not only on addresses, but title verification and registration and where the people live. And then you've got to do the same thing for email to make sure you're compliant on the email side. And there's even more for texting. And on the texting side, just like email, they may have 2 or 3 emails. So you've got to figure out not only which ones are valid, but which ones are being used. And on the phone side, you need to decide, okay, everybody's got more than one phone number. Which ones are landlines? Which ones can you text? Which ones can't you text? Which ones are going to a business? So there's a lot of heavy lifting that needs to be done ahead of time in order for the marketing to be supremely effective and efficient and cost effective. And as we do that, then the next question is, well, if you're going to do all that for us, can you push the data back into the DMS for us? Well, that's not going to happen. And that's not going to happen not only because the DMSs aren't going to allow it, but I couldn't carry enough insurance to cover if something went wrong if I push something into the DMS. So that's not going to happen. But what you can get, you can get lists, and you can get organized lists that can kind of show you. And then if you've got a BDC, if you have people that have the ability to either reach out or make the changes in the DMS, then that's the first way you can go about of getting a much more cleaner file to use going forward. And as far as doing it on your own, yes, you absolutely. I'll add one last thing, and that is you can get lists from your DMS. If you've got a relationship with your rep, you can have them download certain lists, and they'll send you the lists, and you've got to organize the lists and go through them, and you can use those to determine which emails are bad. And it's just a lot of work. Can be done. It's just a lot. And so that's why we have moved into that area, because it's a huge need. Yeah. It's a huge need, and it is relatively unfulfilled. And it's a big part of what we do. And hopefully that helps.
So is there like a before and after, kind of after you go through this process? Is there some metrics, or like how bad is it? Like what are we talking about here?
That's a great question. So I started with 50,000 records.
Yeah.
So out of those 50,000 records, it's not uncommon to have 10,000 records that are valid, 20,000 that are valid. It is much more. It is much more the exception to have more than 50% of the records valid. More often than not, it's 60 to 75% of those records are either duplicate records, or they're merged on top of each other, or they're just, they're just not valid. And the crucial part of this is you can have a guy that has bad addresses, but his emails are good, or the emails are bad, but the phone numbers are good. So if you have a way to communicate the valid method as opposed to spraying and praying everything across the board, then that obviously is a big help. And yeah, unfortunately, I've seen people that have 50,000 records that have 5,000 valid. It's that's not good. It's significant. And I will add this, and that is when you're depending on somebody else to do the marketing, whether it's the OEM or ABC marketing company, and you give them a budget of $5,000 or $10,000, and they don't have the valid data to support it, they're probably going to find ways to use that budget up, regardless of what the data looks like. And which is why the OEMs don't remove any records that they know are invalid, or people live 3,000 miles away, because it gives a bigger pool to market from. Right. And ultimately the dollar reigns supreme, and that's going to happen, unfortunately.
Interesting. Thanks for that. Travis?
I got nothing on that one.
Nothing. Absolutely. No problem. Paul.
Ian, we just got a question come in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And I'm going to have to rephrase it because we're not here to give endorsements or like promote other companies, but I guess it's more of a question, and I'm going to phrase it where we're asking our guests for their opinion.
Yeah.
So let me just rephrase this for the dealer. So the based upon everything that we're hearing today and all about the issues we're reading about with AI and all things like that, do you think the dealers should focus on doing their marketing through their CRM and their DMS, or should they basically utilize a third party? Because what I'm hearing, I just came off of a comment that Dave made about pushing the data back in. I think Travis would agree. It's pushing the data back in once it's clean into the DMS is basically impossible. So the question that he's asking is, what do the three of you as experts feel about using a third party to market to this clean data once it's pulled out of the DMS? Want to start, Travis, on that one?
I mean, if you can have a third-party source of truth to work from, that'd be ideal. You know, one that you can control the data, one that you can clean up the records on. If you can't push updates to the DMS or OEMs or CRMs that are going to be that you trust and rely on, a third party sounds like an ideal situation to clean up and work from. That's a source of truth.
Okay, great. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. I think it's all a matter of, I think for the dealers, look, they built a tremendous business, right? So, but they built a tremendous automotive business, right? They have to manage, they have to understand what the expectations are. And know that everything that they're working on now to try to optimize and to try to automate is going to be more of a evolution and transition to than a light switch, right? I do believe they would be doing themselves and their business ultimately the best by going to a third party that is able to get tranches of data, and that's what they do. That's what they focus on. Keep selling vehicles, keep optimizing your process, keep making your experiences great. Do that and do that well. You know how to do that well. Give it to vet the third party vendor, make sure that they have the competency and the skills and the background and the time to be able to manage what you're going to be sending them, but ultimately let them manage that, because your outcomes in this evolutionary process are going to be better.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, obviously, I'm a little partial to that with my position, and
shocking.
You know, I believe, you know, I was, like I said, a dealer for a while, and it's really difficult to get your arms around that, and I was very aggressive with respect to the data that we were using at the time. You just didn't have the avenues that we have now, and for the dealers that do their own marketing. Yes, they may be saving some money with respect to, you know, the overall cost of the marketing, et cetera, but there's no way to know how much time and effort is wasted because there's no way for them to know exactly how clean the data is. And unless they're doing it from the ground floor, which means they're actually calling these people or verifying it ahead of time. And when you have thousands upon tens of thousands of people in the database or a CRM, it's not realistic. And, you know, when you find somebody, company that you're comfortable with, that can be transparent with it and you know what they're doing, then, you know, the comfort comes from knowing if I invest $3,000 or $30,000, that it's going to go, the message is going to get to the intended recipient. And that is where the rubber hits the road across the board. Because when you're using a blanket OEM file, and they're telling you you're responsible for 10,000 people, and 5,000 of them, you know, live 1,000 miles away, and half of them their cars are traded in, and you can pull up Carfax and verify some of that stuff and see it, you know. And back in the day, there were dealers that pulled Carfax on their entire databases when retention was paying a ton of money. It's a lot. It's an arduous task. Much easier to have somebody input VINs and give you the information, and then use that information to market.
100%.
I'd like to add too, please, because I think universally everybody said pretty much the same thing, that going with a third party vendor that understands data, has the people, staff, and on prem that can actually manage that. But I also encourage it's the dealerships being able to vet the third party vendor to make sure that they're the right third party vendor that can really do that and really do that well. And some of the things that came up here were hey, how do I get my data from my existing DMS over, right? These are questions. You should have a list of questions that you'll go to a third-party vendor and ask, and they should be able to answer these very specific questions, firmly. And they should also be able to give, hard statistics on what they've done in the past with other dealerships or dealerships groups that have actually provided benefit. So the same way you're looking to try to get accuracy and really efficacy out of your existing data to make better, decisions, it's all about data collection. So when you're vetting out a third-party vendor, they should have a list of questions, and that vendor should ultimately be able to prove what they've been able to do and the processes that they need, or the things that they need in order to actually provide I'll say a true benefit.
Peter, I have one more thing that. So I forget who made the comment about the field mappings, right? So the DMSs, the CRMs, I all use different terminologies for all the field mappings. You may have custom ones of multiples. One source of truth, you've got your field map. Here's where my source of data is. Bolt on your next service provider. You know exactly where it's coming from. You save time to expedite onboarding. So if they have to go back to that every single time and learn your environment, you're just delaying using them.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Travis, I noticed on your webpage that you talk about how for a lot of your clients, you will go in and help them review providers. I want to take a second and maybe talk about, follow up on what Paul said, about what you do and how you will evaluate, because you're working as a third party, pretty much as a consultant with the dealer to help them make the best decision. So when you're looking at a potential third-party vendor for a dealer, what are the things that you look at to vet that vendor?
Yeah, I mean, so the problem is that most dealerships have the guy they call down the street. That's who I use, right? And so they don't really know outside their pool of circle of trusted people what is available out there. And so what I have the ability to do is go to NADA, talk to partners like you, talk to other vendors, like, what are the services out there? What's available? And like I shared with you, 9 times out of 10, when I go learn that product, I end up selling that product to the dealer because it's what they're looking for. I know that product better than the dealer, the company who owns the product salespeople do, because I know exactly what my client's looking for. And so a lot of times they just don't present it right, don't sell it right, and so they just don't know what their availability features are. There's a huge marketplace out there for things that have been created specifically to overcome the challenges they're dealing with. Most dealerships want to focus on sales and service. They don't have the time or technology people to go deal with data entry, deal with technology, deal with cybersecurity. Their job is to sell cars and service customers. That's what their core competency is. And so that's where our skill set comes in. We help them find the solutions that they're trying to overcome.
Great thoughts. Yeah, I mean, because the dealer may not even know the questions to ask. Like, right. Yeah, I got this problem, but how do I fix it? And who do I trust to do it? And more importantly, who do I not trust to do it? We're almost out of time, Peter, so we have time for final thoughts for everybody. So do we want to start with maybe David? Go ahead, David.
Yes, I appreciate listening to everybody else. All the points are outstanding. And, with respect to the data issue, it's not going to go away. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as additional sources of data become available to each and every dealer. So it's going to be imperative that the dealers and get their arms around what they want to do, put together a game plan, and what to use for if you're just looking at monetary means, it's just so they're not wasting money on needless marketing. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that data is going to be able to help you, depending on whether or not you have a BDC. And if you're part of a dealer group, then the benefits become exponential. And so, finding a partner or creating a process in-house so that you're not creating duplicates, all of those things are part and parcel to our measures to help. But you need to know that the marketing that you do, whatever you do, whoever you do it with, is going to be based on the quality of the data that you're using. So all these great tools and the shiny pennies that come out at NADA are only going to be as good and as useful as the foundation that you're using. And furthermore, when you're given reporting that's on data that isn't of the highest quality, then you're making potentially forecasting and different decisions based on bad metrics. And so the repercussions just roll downhill and affect a lot of what you're doing. And unfortunately, that's kind of the state that we're in right now, which is why we've moved into the area that we moved into. And it's an area that I would highly recommend that the dealers take notice of, get educated as best they can, and make some decisions accordingly.
Thanks for that. Travis, I know you have some thoughts here. Go ahead.
I think you mean Paul.
Oh, sorry. Paul, you have some thoughts first? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Listen to all the dealers that are out there listening. Please, I highly, highly encourage you to manage expectations. One, there is no silver bullet, but what I encourage you to do, what you could do today, is actually establish some standards and governance on how you're going to, from this point forward, you need to do an exercise, please. From this point forward, how you're going to, what are the standards and the governance and the process and really procedures that you're going to do from this point forward to be able to do data collection and data entry. And you can't have any variation off of that. I encourage that. So understand, it could be your best salesperson or your general manager or the owner, who's ever going to be in that chain that's going to be doing data collection. There has to be a standard and a governance around that. And that process, it cannot deviate whatsoever. And then how that data is being ultimately entered. If you have a CRM, an actual DMS that needs to be optimized for the way that you're collecting data today, or the new standards and processes that you want to use moving forward, go find a admin, a third-party admin or somebody internally, or go back to the actual DMS CRM vendor and buy services to be able to optimize your environment, to be able to have those fields in there, in the standards that you set moving forward.
Thanks for that. So Travis, you're out on the final comments. So Peter, go ahead.
Well, quite honestly, this was very enlightening for me when Dave shared with us that when he's cleaning data, sometimes he gets 5%, 10%.
Ooh.
Those numbers, because I'm not dealing with what he's doing with cleaning the data out of the DMS and matching all the records. I knew from experience. I mean, I remember in the car business, I've seen service advisors, just because they're lazy, create new records so they don't have to try and find the older records, and it's just all that stuff creates a mess when they start to market it. So that was very interesting. But again, I highly recommend it. Not that I'm doing it, because I don't really sell any services to dealers anymore directly. I do clean some data for dealers. That's about it. But I highly recommend, if you're going to do marketing in today's environment, and I'm saying this not to give anybody an endorsement, but to say that if you're going to do marketing and you're going to be marketing to your DMS data and your CRM data, find a good third-party partner, make sure they know what they're doing, and have them handle that. It does a lot of things to protect your dealership, protect your overall situation, but the clean data is such a big problem. And before you do anything with AI, have your data clean. Reach out to David or Paul or Travis or myself or Ian, and we can recommend to you a couple companies to help you clean that data. Because if you're going to go spend the thousands of dollars, and I saw some of the price tags for some of these AI products at NADA, and they're pretty pricey. And you're going to spend the kind of money to go start using AI, don't use bad data. It's only going to cause problems, and you're going to get bad results. And that's my biggest recommendation. Spend the money up front. Make sure your data is 100%, is correct and accurate. Because if you do that and you start using these AI products, you are going to literally blow the doors off of your business.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hire people that do things at a high level that you just aren't able to do, or aren't unwilling to do, or just not very good at. And I think that's part of the challenge here. But thanks very much, everyone, for all their thoughts. Happy President's Day for the U.S. listeners, and for the Canadian listeners, depending on where you are, Family Day, I guess. Have yourself a great day. All the best. More NADA videos soon as I have a chance to edit them. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thanks for doing this, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you for helping the industry get better today live.